Hello, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to Mark Steele from Customer First Logistics. Thank you for joining us today, Mark.
Yeah, no problem at all, Dave. Good to see you.
Please give us an overview of your business, what you do, and where it fits in the supply chain cycle.
Okay, so as you said, I'm Mark Steele. I'm one of the directors and owners at Customer First Logistics. Customer First Logistics is a fairly new business. My business partner and a lady that you know well called Jackie Doolan set the business up before I joined it, actually. And then I've been in the business, I think it's around a year now. I'm not sure. I had to, basically, I joined the business later than I'd like, but it was complicated leaving my old place, unfortunately. But yeah, we do majority general haulage, and we have a fleet of 20 vehicles. We're very lucky, really, because we operate across all of the North Midlands, so we're not really tied into a specific small postcode zone. We've got 20 vehicles. We run a big, nice general haulage fleet. We are part of the Pallet Force network, which has been phenomenal for us. As a platform for growth, Pallet Force has been amazing. The IT, the people there. I've got to mention Mark Tapper, who's been very, very supportive to us from Pallet Force. So it's that's us really. General haulage, pallet network. We're moving into a bit more warehousing now, we're trying to grow in a nice, sustainable way and make sure that we're picking up the right customers. They've got to be a right fit for us, and that gives us opportunity to get some margin by growing the groupage fleet as well. So yeah, that's us in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. And I ask everyone the same question. What brought you into the lovely world of logistics?
And I can imagine you've had some quite varied answers. And I would imagine mine isn't dissimilar to a few people, Dave, because I was one that actually fell into the industry. I knew nothing about logistics, apart from the fact we used to use certain transport suppliers in my previous work. So in my early career, I was a Royal Air Force engineer. So I was a propulsion technician working on Harriers, Hawks and Tornadoes, and I had a phenomenal young life. I didn't even realise I had a day at work until I was about 30 years old, which was very fortunate. And then I came out of the Air Force, stayed in engineering, worked for Lafarge. Then I got a production job at Lafarge. Then that allowed me to move to another business in production. And then I got a job as a general manager. So I had a sales and a commercial team working for me. And it was at that point where I left the building materials sector. I was approached by a friend of mine from a business called Premier Logistics in Leicester, a guy called Lee Christopher. And Lee gave me the first chance in logistics. And that must be 16, 17 years ago. It was a long time ago. And then, I worked with that business for 5-6 years, and then moved to work with the late, great Hilary Devey at Palex. And I was at Palex for 8 years or so. So, yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but quite varied. I'm lucky enough to have had sort of a second chance at a career. But yeah, fell into it, Dave.
Well, if it's any consolation, pretty much everyone I've spoken to has done exactly the same thing. So, but it's still interesting to hear the different stories. So tell us about your business sector and what you do in the transport, pallet networks and general haulage, and how you see it developing over the next few years.
Yeah, well, that's obviously we sit in that general haulage sector. There's a lot of similar businesses to ours out there, pallet network members that are running a decent sized fleet. So yeah, we sit in amongst the sort of the SME haulier group. What we tend to do is try and gain as much critical mass, as I said, to feed our freight into the pallet network and then work that freight to the best of our ability. And most of our customers are SMEs, so small, medium enterprises. Although we do have 2 customers that turn over a significant amount of money, which which all add up to having quite a nice, diverse customer base. None of our customers make up more than 12% of our turnover, which is nice. A lot of people aren't in that kind of fortunate position, and the sort of customer base is growing. And I suppose to answer your question, where do you see the sector going in the future? Particularly the pallet network sector. There's been some consolidation, as you know. We've seen that. We've seen some of the big boys coming in for some of the pallet networks. TPN. They're owned by Kalina Group. We know that Palletways are owned by DP World, Pallet Force, EV Cargo. So I'd probably see a little bit more consolidation going on in the pallet network arena. But regards to the future, I think it's the same old race with the pallet networks as it was back in the day with the parcels. IT and service tends to win the race. So for a business like ours, what we try and do is be very, very different with the way we treat our customers. Everything is honest pricing policy. Everything has visibility. We are incredibly proactive with getting back to the customers. And again, that's why we named the business Customer First. It sounds cheesy, it sounds a cliche, but it's a powerful message. We've got that on everything we do. So and that's genuinely how we treat everybody within the business. Customers do come first, and everybody from whoever in our business knows what that ethos stands for. So we that's the way we see the future, the way we see our business, and we're getting quite a bit of traction as we get a little bit older and the business matures, because people, our reputation is now growing, and we see that really as our main badge of honor to grow our business.
No, that's great, and thanks for that. And if you were to describe the current challenges in your marketplace for your business and businesses like yours? Again, most of the challenges we see within our business day to day will be exactly the same as everybody else that's in the sector, and probably running a small to medium sized business in the UK. It's we've had the challenges earlier on in the year of the national insurance rises. That was something that us personally, and I would imagine there's a few more out there, took that on the chin. Typically, the pallet networks have one price increase or rate review, as they like to call it, every year. And we certainly didn't want to go to our customers in May and put our rates up mid-year. If you do that, it's a bit like commercial suicide, because that's another excuse for your customers to probably test the market. And if somebody's got a lower overhead than you or better synergies in a certain area, they might undercut you on price. So we've sucked the NI and the minimum wage increases up. Obviously, we're now in our sort of rate review season, as with everybody else is. From October through March, that's when all the pallet networks put the prices up. But we are incredibly open with our customers, so we tell them exactly what's gone up. We'll even share the costs of things like trailers and fuel. Well, everybody shares fuel prices. But our customers always get a breakdown of that cost base. And I think when they see, that we are hiding nothing from them, I think that trust grows, and that enables us to, hopefully retain much more customer base than our competitors, because at the end of the day, the relationship is based on trust and openness and honesty. But for me, the national insurance rises, they were tough to take. The fuel price seems to be steady at the minute, though it fluctuates by a few pence per week, which is under control. That's quite nice. And the minimum wage increases, but minimum wage increases for us as a business wasn't too bad. If the government keep doing it, it will, because then it encroaches onto some of the driving staff, and once that gets close, you need a buffer, or there's no point. These guys don't want to do it. So I think the challenges really are the government or potential government tax hikes. That's what worries us. We're
pretty solid with driver recruitment, particularly around the Staffordshire area, because that's where my business partner, he's operated for years and he has a great reputation. So yeah, we're okay on that front. But yeah, main challenges, government, no surprises there, Dave.
No, okay. And if you look forward to the next 3 to 5 years, what do you see the biggest opportunities and threats for the sector?
Well, I think the big buzzword nowadays is AI, isn't it? Everybody's talking about AI and what that can do for a business. And yeah, being honest, we've dipped our toe into the water. So we've got one project in particular which is bubbling away in the background. But it's the challenge we've got with integrating AI into our business is at what level you integrate your bots or whatever you want to do into the software systems that you've got, and how much information you give to the customer that's given to them off the back of a chatbot, or whatever medium you're going to deliver it to the customer base on. So yeah, I think we see an opportunity, an early opportunity to automate some of the low-hanging easy calls, if you like. So somebody wants to know, he's been given an ETA but maybe it's late or something like that, or it hasn't got a scan, then that customer will then put the inquiry in. The integration with the Palletforce system or our TMS will then tell them why it's late or update the ETA. But we find, and I'm sure a lot of hauliers will also say this, there are times that in this industry, your customer wants a phone call from a person. And again, yeah, AI, it will come a part of what we do, but right now I think we are selling, one of our USPs is our customer service, Dave. So if somebody is finding out through an AI link to our software that there's a problem, I'm not going to be that happy about that. So Jackie and her team work really hard to be the first call into the customer. So yeah, I think for us, AI. However, it'd be interesting to see where other businesses similar to ours go with it. And I think opportunities within the sector, we spoke about consolidation within the pallet networks, but when you see some of the consolidators buying up small, medium haulage businesses, that could be, I think we'll see more of that. I'm not sure how successful some of the businesses are that have bought up these smaller hauliers. You do hear some horror stories, but yeah, I think we'll see a bit more of that. The future for Customer First over the next 3 to 5 years is probably warehousing and increasing the fleet. Our operator's license only allows us to have a certain number of vehicles, certain number of trailers. That's probably because the premises that we're in is a little bit on the small side for how much we've grown. So yeah, we're looking to relocate very soon. I would say we'll be in a new place by the spring. That'll enable us to bring in some warehouse revenue, additional warehouse revenue, and also increase the fleet. We are very lucky, touch wood, to have an order book which is bigger than our fleet right now. So we subcontract a lot of work. Again, fortunate position to be in, but I don't really want to subcontract it. We want to deliver it on our own fleet. We want to retain that margin. So yeah, that's the plans for us over the next few years.
Thank you. That's really good, and thanks for giving us that overview. What are people in the sector not openly talking about that perhaps they should be?
Well, there's, as you know, Dave, this industry is very vocal, and you'll get people promoting their own good causes and how well they're doing. But there is a lot of challenges in the sector, as we all know. People aren't going into administration and going bump for no reason. There are challenges which we probably should talk a bit more openly about. And I think the RHA do a good job with lobbying government about keeping fuel duties the same, keeping wages under control. I think, again, I am being critical of the government. Anybody that follows me on any social channels will know I'm not a fan of Labour and I'm not a fan of Rachel Reeves. But I think what the point they don't get is by putting up the minimum wage, by putting up fuel duties, by putting up, stealth taxation, all they're doing is increasing inflation, because everything that's delivered on a vehicle, if the price of operating that vehicle goes up, everything on that vehicle goes up. And pretty much everything in the UK that you buy has travelled by a HGV at some point. So, yeah, I think, we probably all talk about it and moan about it a lot. But yeah, that's an issue for us. And I think there's something else that is, people talk about the positives or the positives only of, trying to run your fleet, more green and more environmentally friendly, things like that. But what's not spoken enough about that and the challenges around that is the cost of certain vehicles, particularly the electric trucks. There's a few knocking about now, and I think a lot of them, and people may be critical of me saying this, but a lot of these are bought for a bit of a vanity project. But to operate a £200,000 unit as opposed to a £100,000 to £120,000 diesel unit does have additional cost. It's not really much cheaper to put the electricity in it, but it takes a lot longer to charge it up. So that vehicle is stood for longer as well. So, a big 4PL or a big logistics company, they're not going to be able to get the utilization out of an electric vehicle because it's got to be stood charging up. Customers don't want to pay any more to have an electric vehicle, but a lot of customers like the thought of having a green delivery. So, I think it's an evolving picture, but for me, it's something that we do need to address, because some of the targets and dates that you hear and you think that's just going to be impossible. But I'm not against going forward with green energy. I am for it, but I think what we need to do is sort of control expectations of timescales.
No, that's good. And the next question was, how do you see the green transition impacting your sector? So you started on that already, but and obviously what I hear anecdotally is obviously the cost of electric vehicles, and particularly the depreciation, is a big challenge. So how do you see the generally the green transition happening? Do you think legislation is needed by governments, or can market forces make it happen by themselves?
It's a good question, and it's one that you hear bandied about a hell of a lot. As everybody, or there's a lot of people that operate closely in our sector, and I've got a couple of friends that run electric vehicles. One, Justin Armstrong, who I know really, really well. They're running a Volvo unit, and they use that for small local deliveries. But again, they've got the challenge of trying to charge this up. And for me, I think the green transition will happen, but I think it will be slower. It's all well and good government putting in legislation to make it happen quicker, but until the technology can keep up with the industry demands, that's a pointless exercise. That's futile. So government legislation without the appropriate understanding that's pointless. So we need to understand where the tech's going, there are other options, to EVs, we have alternative fuels, they're progressing. But I think for me, the message would be, okay, fossil fuels aren't ideal, but we probably need to put the brakes on a little bit, see where the tech's going, and then make an accurate and educated decision when we know a bit more about the technology advances. It's no good putting Diane Abbott in charge of that decision and hoping to get all of us on electric vehicles by 2030, because it's not going to happen. So I think let's have an educated decision on it, and let's have people in power understanding the big challenges of it.
Okay, that's good. And during your career, what development in the sector has surprised you most during your career?
Technology hasn't really surprised me, because I'm in the pallet game, Dave. The pallet game tends to be a couple of 3 years behind the parcel game. So when you saw DPD, really get market share through having the best IT and the ETAs and, the SMS text messages, that was always going to come into the sort of the pallet sector. So yeah, that wasn't really a surprise. I think the rate of uptake or how slow it was for the pallet networks to catch the parcel guys up was a bit of a surprise, because again, for me, all of the pallet networks probably missed a jump on that. They'll all say that they were doing it before the others, but they weren't. There was no pallet network that did a DPD. And I think, yeah, with IT driving, the volume and particularly the growth of certain businesses. But then I also understand the challenges. If you need to invest a few million quid in having the best IT, which is going to drive a lot of growth into your business, your hub facility and your membership might not be able to keep up with that plans. It's keep up with them plans, but it's a bit easier in the parcel sector because most of them, they own their own vehicles. They're not member networks or member parcel networks. So yeah, challenges everywhere, but I would have expected somebody to take a big jump on the IT sort of potential opportunity.
Okay, good. And the final question, which I've got to say I'm really looking forward to now, is if you could speak to the Prime Minister and ask them what they could do to assist your business to grow and flourish, what would you ask them?
Wow. Well, I've probably covered a lot of this, Dave. But yeah, as I said, I'm not really a fan of this. Not really a fan of this government. I don't think it's been very good for business. I think Charlie Mullins of Pimlico Plumbers said the other day that all they've done is create Britain's biggest export, which is wealthy people. So yeah, there are things that I agree with. We do need to invest in the NHS, and yeah, the things that I agree with, but I just don't think they're doing it right. You need to reform these failing government sectors before you can sort of move forward and throw more money at them. But for me, they've got to keep fuel duty under control. Like I said, the RHA do lobby quite hard, and that's good that they're doing that. Fuel duty, don't keep throwing money at the minimum wage increases, because all that does is put inflation up. And also no more, try and control taxation against small and medium enterprises, because they're the beating heart of this country. They always have been. So to tax SMEs, and in particular sort of Middle England, don't keep taxing Middle England. Let's let the people who are working hard and putting the tax dollars in everybody in their coffers, start looking after them a bit more. I think if we've got controlled costs over the next 3 to 5 years, this industry can recover, it can flourish. There's enough incentive there for younger people to come into the sector as drivers. And yeah, I just think, yeah, just calm it all down and don't look at us for taxation, and we could be okay.
Great. Okay. I was just going to say thank you, Mark, for your time. It's lovely to speak to you, and really our viewers and listeners will really enjoy your comments and views. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, no problem at all, Dave.